Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all well. I was just watching this channel here, Jordan Cash, million subscribers. I had been subscribed before on a previous channel. Um, he's in America and he just covers, well, the decline of the world, as we've been talking about in many a video. It's sort of the undercurrent topic of every video, and the decline of the UK and the immigration, the money, the economy, the poverty, you name it. This the general it gets worse by the day, every day, slowly but surely kind of scenario. And yeah, it's not a problem that's specific to England or Scotland or Wales or the Britain or anything. It's a worldwide problem of the economies, the national debts, the inflation, and it's very much pretty much every country in the world suffering this. This is why it kind of feels like a plan to me. Like all these sort of economies have been built to fall, and they're built on debt, which in essence, I mean, how the whole system works is ridiculous, really. That we print money at debt, and the debt goes onto the national debt, and then the more money we print devalues the money supply. So it's kind of like an inevitable breakage. The further you go, there's like a basically an invisible line somewhere in how much money we print, right? There's an invisible line, and when we pass the invisible line of this is too much money, basically the economy breaks, and it seems we passed the line. We passed the line long ago, and it's just sort of trickling out in a way. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, and the damage has been done in effect, but we're just now going to watch it all unfold and fall to bits, really, and escalate the debts and the poverty, really, is what I'm seeing coming. And from what I know of the economy, it's the only thing that can come unless we're going to pay off some of these debts and some of this national debt, and reverse the process. And we're not planning to do that. There's no plans to do that. The closest we ever come was back in David Cameron's time, and he was talking about austerity. And although austerity is counterproductive, cutting the money of the people at the bottom who spend their money. It's rich people have got a lot of money, a lot of surplus cash, but they don't spend it. The poor people spend everything they've got every week. It's a constant churn of money. Um, in the same sectors as well, like the food industry, and you know what I mean. Where the rich people can go off spending money in all sorts of sectors, buy Lamborghinis and things that, and not necessarily spend money in the country. Obviously, Lamborghini or Ferrari, being Italian, and if, obviously the money would go to Italy if you're spending on expensive things, watches, maybe, you know what I mean, the country that makes the best watches. So you won't necessarily spend all your money in your country either, whereas the peasants do, so to speak. Maybe 2 week a year they'll go to Spain and spend it there, but for 48 weeks a year you've probably got them spending money in your economy. So, New York City just doomed its middle class to be homeless, and we've seen the ever escalating the homeless crisis, even in England and in our cities, and it was never as bad as what I've seen today with all these homeless people. And you watch Charlie Beach and Billy Moore, I think, and people like that, and not now saying he wanders the streets as well. And the guy in Liverpool I mentioned, Casey Image Works, I think was his channel. And yeah, and there's the ever escalating homeless problem here in England. And this is all connected to the economy, the debts, the inflation. It's all connected. And here we have this video by Cash Jordan from America. I'll just give it a little bit of a play. I won't play the full thing, obviously. I'll just play the sort of intro.
Starter homes are disappearing from the United States. In the early 1980s, as many as 40% of the new homes built were considered entry level. By 2023, just 9% fit the criteria.
Give it another 20 years, and literally no young person will be able to afford.
Yeah, we don't have to wait 20 years for that to happen because here in New York City, it's already happening. And while the prices for entry-level homes here start at around $200,000, for most people, living in these places becomes impossible after a year or two because spending that amount of money will only get you a one-room, one-person studio in most of the city, making New York a place that's quickly running out of room for most of its residents. And the worst part about this is nobody in charge seems to care if New York's middle class disappears permanently.
Manhattan real estate sales stalled for 2 years as buyers and sellers just remained too far apart on price. Now the sellers are caving. The average apartment price in Manhattan will now cost you only $2 million.
Yeah, a starter home used to
$2 million. So yeah, and I mentioned this before. It's kind of like, to me, and more so in America, but it kind of feels like that it could go this way in England as well. We're just slightly behind. But there was a film. This film, In Time, it's called, and it's Justin Timberlake. I'm not sure of this lass's actress's name. Nice eyes though. And Cillian Murphy's in it also. She called Amanda Seyfried, possibly. Amanda Seyfried. Nice eyes. But yeah, In Time it's called, and the money's sort of been eradicated, and the concept of the film, and you get time instead of money, and the rich people have all the time in the world, and the poor people struggle for time, and if you run out of time, you die. So the rich people live forever, in effect, and the poor people die off, and you can't get to certain areas. So the main sort of central city of the film, this sort of see, I've lost the when it flipped to the.
Quickly running out of room for most of its residents. And the worst part about this is nobody in charge seems to care if New York's middle class disappears permanently.
Manhattan real estate.
Yeah, so this bit on the film, that the central city, you can only get there if you're super rich, to be honest, and there's no poor people whatsoever in this entire area on the film, and they've been pushed away and live in poorer areas, and in order to get into this area, you have to pass through time zones, and these time zones in effect cost you time to get into the next area. So it just to get into this city area on the film would maybe cost you a couple of years, and none of the poor people have years to play with. They all have like minutes and hours and days. So none of the poor people can ever get to the center of the city. It's not a bad film, to be honest. It's not a bad film. It could have been better. They could have, if they'd spent more money, it could have been a lot better. But for the money spent on it, it's not a bad film. And but the concept, although it's time, it seems to me we're very much sort of seeing this happen in the real world, but with money, and it's the same sort of thing that the poor people are being priced out. It's like the centre of London and the rent in the centre of London. So it is sort of happening here, probably the centre of Manchester as well, in some of these new flats. So it is sort of happening here, but just slower, and obviously it started for me. Manchester and London seem to be the main ones. And this Manchester's flying up like a city now with all the skyscrapers that Manchester's got. When I was there, I don't think there was any, to be honest, and this 20 years ago. The Hilton Hotel's a real tall building, and there's a lot of other accompanying it now that I don't think were there when I lived there 20 years ago. So Manchester is developing into a real sort of city, even maybe more so than London. London doesn't seem to be going as high and as fast, so Manchester could get bigger pretty soon. I don't think they've got a lot of space left to go in London either. So yeah, but just this crisis, and the middle class is doomed, and obviously we're the middle class, and it kind of looks that way, to be honest. It does look like the middle class is doomed, and it's just going to get worse and worse, and there just seems no answers, and everybody's too busy with life or other problems to notice that ultimately our entire lives seem to be going down the toilet here, and everything we value or everything we hold dear does seem to be leaving us, and we seem to like we're going to be poor, and poverty isn't a nice thing, and what comes with poverty, and if it's starvation or homelessness or then disease because you're malnutrition, and it's all knock-on effects. To be honest, poverty starts a chain of events that's very, very, very hard to come back from, to be honest. And a lot of if well, yeah, it's just very hard to come back from, and especially if you've got to the homeless point, and you see there's some of these homeless people on the street. It's very difficult to come back from. It's very difficult to get a job when you're homeless, and attend a job and be presentable and clean and do, you know what I mean, hygienic at a job if you're working with people or in food or anything like that. So it limits what jobs you could even have being homeless. So this is an ever escalating affair, and the more and more people we see on the streets, the worse the problem's going to get. And I can't see, even in England here, how this is getting any better. But America's homeless problems are unbelievable, to be honest. Hopefully Trump can do something and sort something out there. But the problem is with Trump is Trump can't trump the economy, and he can't, doesn't matter who's in charge, the debts remain the same, and the people in charge have to deal with the debts as they are. And that's the problem here. It doesn't matter who we put in charge in any country, the debt will remain the same, and it's these debts that are crippling us and the economies, and nobody sort of asks the questions, what the hell's going on with the economy, how does it work? Like, as I've said before in a previous video, it's all a fugazi in effect. There's no value to any of the money. We took the gold standard off it. It's all just bits of plastic and used to be bits of paper with no ultimate value other than the value we give it. So all these people who run the economies could quite frankly reset the entire system and go back to the start, and so we didn't have the escalating inflation and put all the prices back down. And it wouldn't mean boo to a goose, really. They would still be rich, we would still be poor, they would still have all the money and the power, but we will be able to afford to live. Now, that's never going to happen in my opinion, but it is a possibility. They could do that if they so wanted to and everybody agreed. But they'll never do it, because ultimately the bigger problem is there's too many people on the planet, and by hook or crook, unbeknown to most of the world, and a lot of the world won't want to believe this fact, but there's too many people on the planet, and the people at the top know that there is too many people on the planet. And as it stands, and it's called exponential growth, to be honest, with the population. And due to exponential growth, in I think 10 years, maybe 20 years in between that region, it's estimated that the world population will grow to 15 to 16 billion people due to exponential growth. And people having too many kids, to be honest. Think how many kids the Muslims have. They don't just have one kid. So if you've got 8 billion people and there are couples, that's 4 billion couples, and they all have a kid. Well, there's another 4 billion people. So your 8 billion people become 12 billion people, and we're having kids faster than people are dying off, it seems. Because the generations that are sort of dying out now, or have just died out, were actually the Second World War generation, who we lost millions of them in the war, who were then not able to have kids because they lost their lives. Which didn't increase the population further, and we lost them as well. So when it come to that generation's time to pass on, there wasn't as many of them because we lost millions of them in the wars. So, but now them generations have gone, and we're on to generations that we're on to the generations that were born after the wars. To be honest, the wars ended in the 40s. So you're talking 50, 70, 75 years, 80 years since the wars ended. So this is sort of, if you were born right after the war, you're passing away now kind of crack. There is still some alive that were during the war, but you know what I mean, generally. So all them people have gone. These generations didn't have a big war, so all these people lived long, had kids, multiple kids. The population grew. In effect, the two things that bring the population down best are war and poverty. And you're seeing a lot of poverty, and you're seeing quite a bit of war as well. And my theory is that there's plans afoot. I mean, COVID was a similar thing, if you ask me, to be honest. What the vaccine was all about, the amount of people that have died from that vaccine, from heart problems and other things, is unbelievable, and they don't publish it. But to me, there's a big agenda on this planet, and if you even go and watch, well, Christ, what's he called? I forgot his name. The Nature guy. Just BBC. He's real old now, but he does a thing about the planet being overpopulated, and he pitches the whole thing to the UN and to the World Economic Forum and all these people, and he's pitching it to the powers that be, that there's too many people on the planet, and the problem isn't so much now, although we have a problem now. In 10 years, we have a problem, a big problem. So we need to act now. And this is a bit like your climate change sort of scenario as well. We need to act now to prevent further problems, big problems in the future. And it's not problems with how much land we've got and where we've got to put. Look, we can build up like we see in the picture. We've not got a problem with lands. We've got plenty of land. We could fit everybody into probably America, and have all the rest of the world left. But it's resources that we're struggling with. It's feeding at it'll be feeding 16 billion people a day. The energy that people use for heat and lighting, so we're going to have to get mine and more phones, so you know what I mean, like more cars, more everything. We just need more everything. So, and we're already sort of struggling and testing the world to its limits and resources at around 8 to 9 billion people, it seems, and destroying the world in the process, some would say. So, in my opinion, all this economic doom and what we're seeing is all planned, in my opinion. It's all part of a bigger plan, which is ultimately there's too many people on the planet. And if you are happy and have money and are living a happy life, you are a lot more likely to meet somebody, get married, and have children if you are economically viable, and than if you are not economically viable, and if you're homeless or whatever. It's even maybe the gay thing, why they've tried to sort of turn everybody gay, because if you're gay, you don't have kids, or you know what I mean. Well, if you're gay, you don't have kids. You maybe adopt them or whatever, but you don't. The kid's already here. We have to deal with that kid, in so to speak. So you can look after it, but the kid was already here. We're not having further kids because of if you're gay. You know what I mean. So there's an ultimate agenda here to keep the population down, in my opinion, because that is the biggest problem the world has, overpopulation, and it's not so much a problem now, although it is a problem now, but it's going to be a major problem in the coming years if something isn't done to curb the population. And in my opinion, you're seeing daily, weekly, yearly ways, means, and agendas to do so, to keep the population down and to keep you poor as well, is one way. If you can't afford to have a child and look after a child, you're probably less likely to have a child. So to me, all the economic doom and stuff, it's all planned, but it's all connected to a bigger agenda, and ultimately that agenda is total control, but from certain people's perspectives. But it is about keeping the population down and reducing the population, and poverty and war are two of the best things to do this. And what have we seen for quite a while now? Poverty and war. So yeah, just interesting video, interesting channel. Everybody seems to know this, but nobody seems to know why all this is happening, and why we're always going down the plug hole here. But to me, that's the bigger agenda afoot here. There's too many people there, and you can't come out on telly and be the Hitler or be Chairman Mao or someone like that and want genocide. It's not the done thing. So you've got to kind of do genocide through the back door and not tell anybody you're doing it, if you ask me. But that's the world's problems. Peace.